Dog around the outside. James Cobb in very brave there. But oh, goodness me. And it's contact between three drivers. Oh, he goes on the brakes as late as possible. There's contact between the two of them. Falling into the cross. Oh, no.
We've got massive carnage.
Side goes wide. Through goes Anthony Harrison. Falling spun. The teammates have come together. Mills is through the air. There's contact in the battle for the lead at Indianapolis. McKinzie jumps.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 16 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and of course proudly sponsored by none other than what is Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. We are back once again for another round of the Thrilling Championship and we are here today for round number 3 as our drivers get ready to get underway in Japan. We made our way all the way from the USA across the Pacific Ocean and we have arrived at none other than the Okayama Prefecture, a circuit known as Okayama International, indeed dedicated to the place with which it takes its name from. It is a circuit located near the town of Mimasaka and it is in the remote countryside. Indeed, you may be able to see some of the forestry in the background, albeit slightly obscured by titles, but this is a circuit that is no stranger to some of the finest motorsport that's out there. Indeed, over its time, it is a circuit which has played host to a wide variety of series, including the likes of Formula 1 with the Pacific Grand Prix, and also what is Super GT and Super Formula Light. Now perhaps more known on what is a domestic and national level compared to its international stardom in the 90s, what the remote location of the circuit seeing what was in the end a transcendence of motorsport away from the Mimasaka circuit. Nowadays it is a circuit that is much enjoyed at the national level, indeed one that is never to be underestimated. But as we get ready to go racing here today, well, we do have one race on our schedule. It's an endurance race, and for other drivers here they'll need to endure both the circuit and also the tricky conditions that may arise. With rain on the forecast potentially in the race, albeit it's not guaranteed, there is a chance of it, and the clouds have been gradually brewing as the day has gone on today. Will it be sunshine or will it be rain? But come rain or shine, who will be the one who will be dining at the very top and taking the ultimate points? That's what we're here to find out as we bring you this post-round broadcast from circuit side. Where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this broadcast today as we get ourselves set in the content review of myself. My name is Paul Walsh. You're tuning into a Paul Walsh production and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds as you catch this on YouTube. But in terms of our schedule, timed in none other than Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time UTC -5. And as we can see in approximately what will be about none other than 10 minutes time, we're making our way into our third qualifying session of the season. Now due to be getting underway at what will be a 9:15 this evening, after which we'll then be making our way to the grid for our one and only race. 45 minutes in duration, all drivers out there giving it their all, and when you do have a grand total of what is almost 50 drivers in attendance here today, well, I can tell you one thing, there is no shortage of action expected. But without further ado, as we make our way into this round, let's recap the story of the season so far and what we've got lying in wait. Because as we can see, last time out, we were in the US of A at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. There in the state of North Carolina, we had our first sprint race round of the season. 2 25-minute races and 3 very unique stories across our overall, or Alpha, plus also our Gamma and Delta classes. At the very front of the field, of course, was anybody able to stop the Michael Polasek train? Well, somebody was in the end and able to prevent him, making it 3 from 3, and that was none other than Mika Hendricks, who in the end was able to get to the front in the second sprint race and gradually charge away before Polasek could clear the rest of the field. As for in the Gamma class, well, the story there was one of upheaval. There was a revolt, and at the very forefront of leading that revolt were the Beaver and D's teammates of Raymond Yu and John Lauzon, who made it 1-2 in both races and have leapt to the very top of the standings. As for in the Delta class, well, there are any concerns about Tyler Long's ability to do battle with drivers, given the fact he ran away with things at Road Atlanta in the US state of Georgia in our season opener. Well, those concerns were definitely abated and addressed, because what we got to see from him last time out was an absolutely incredible performance, whereby what he was able to achieve was nothing less than stellar. After a dismal qualifying session, he was able to recover his way through the field and deliver 2 absolutely brilliant results. And indeed, right now, Tyler Long does seem to be the man to beat in Delta. But here we're a very different circuit today in the Okayama Prefecture. Will the different style of circuit shake things up once again? Well, we're about to find out. And indeed, we need to do so in good time, because next time out, we make our way back to the US of A for a circuit that marries everything back together, and that will be the Circuit of the Americas in round number 4 for 2 sprint races. But as we head into this round, well, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit, because it is the Okayama International Circuit's full course, located near Mimasaka and 2.31 miles in length, or 3.72 kilometers, depending on your preference of units. But a wonderful cheat sheet here lays it all bare, exposes the circuit to full core and score, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. What we can see here, based on the circuit map, this is a circuit that's all about direction changes, whereby it's only got 11 corners on it, perhaps some of the least numbers of corners that you'll see from most circuits on the calendar. However, where there's a right-hander, there's normally a left-hander that follows it, and vice versa. Our drivers will see that as they make their way through turns 1 and 2. With turn 1 being one of the prime overtaking zones of this circuit, where you've got a wide open approach to a very late apex bend, but it also means there can be an early traffic jam when we do go green flag racing, as it's a short run to 1. As they make the way out to first bend, as it's aptly named, they'll make the way in towards Williams at turn number 2. And there we have had instances in the past where drivers get a bit cheeky and try to go too wide. Indeed, too wide at that corner doesn't always work out. However, should they be able to get it right, they'll then make the way all the way for the Sir Sterling Moss S's of turn 3, and all the way in towards the Atwood curve at turn number 4. They'll come sweeping uphill through that right-hander, only then to charge the way down the long back straight. Turn number 4 is a good overtaking opportunity, as is the long back straight all the way down towards the hairpin of turn number 5, but that's where we'll see close battles on the braking. And then through the Concertina there, it's into the very tight latter half of lap of turn 6, 7 and 8 of Revolver, Piper and Redmond, while drivers will sweep the way for a combination of 3 left-handers, but there's very little room for error, and indeed too wide through there is going to cost a huge amount of time. And at the time they get to Redmond, we'll see some dives under braking, there's no doubt about it, but if they get it right there, the only problem is on the inside. You force yourself on the outside of Hobbs Bend at turn number 9, and then coming out today, it's the downhill run on Might Night corner, and last corner turns 10 and 11 to complete lap and do it all over again. But what does this mean for what our drivers can expect in terms of circuit ratings? Well, firstly, in terms of tyre stress, there's a very high level of tyre degradation here because of the loading of the corners and also a lot of low-speed and high-speed corners mixed together. It does mean those outside edges of the tyres will definitely be worn down. We also do have plenty of heavy braking zones here, most notably turns 1, 5 and also 8 and 11. And what it does mean for our drivers here, the brakes are going to get scoring hot as well, just as much as the tyres. Overtaking-wise, overtaking is highly possible, but that means battles can run amok. The only thing is, of course, our drivers will need to pick the right time to attack versus when the right time is to defend. And as for the off-tracks, well, they are moderate because of the fact there's plenty of grass to go around here. There's very little runoff, and indeed, you've got to run to the curves, but dip one wheel wide, and you may very quickly be taking a trip to the greenery. But in terms of our pit entry as well, it's a difficult pit entry, as our drivers need to come off of racing line at turn number 9 to make the way into the pits at turns 10 and 11. We're running all the way parallel to the circuit, and it's very easy to carry too much speed, and should you go beyond the pit entry lines, you'll very quickly find yourself picking up a drive-through penalty when you emerge on the pit lane. As for the pit exit, it's as easy as can be, emerging straight onto the inside of turn number 1, and indeed, being on that inside line means you can be defensive if you're in a strategic battle with one of your rivals, and the two of you come out together. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, with an overview of our circuit all covered, and a huge thank you to the admin team at AlphaTouring Challenge for putting together these cheat sheets. They're absolutely fantastic. Indeed, many a series could learn from them. Well, let's give you a recap of the rules coming into this round. And as we can see, this, as always, is an open setup series where drivers bring the setup of their choosing to each and every event. However, in terms of our endurance race, we'll return to the rule set, and as we can see, the race shall commence by a standing start, as is a tradition of the AlphaTouring Challenge series, with drivers changing at least one tyre during the race during their pit stop. Now, each driver has one fast repair available should they need to use it as part of the pit stops. Alternatively, we may see them come into the pits as well for a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points, or if they've been very cheeky, well, hopefully not, they will be disqualified for accumulate 30 or more, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. But as we make our way back to circuit side, well, let's talk a little bit about our championship standings coming into this round. We start off with the overall Drivers' Championship, and here we can see the one name, the man who is the defending champion and looking to try and charge his way away. Michael Polasek leads now by 29 points over Logan McKinzie, with Polasek having scored 2 wins and a second so far. Indeed, can anybody slow him down? Logan McKinzie sits in second for Pennzoil Super Touring behind the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver and knows he's building a gap. But meanwhile, look at third and fourth, and what you'll see there is the Beaver and D's teammates of Raymond Tiu and John Lauzon. Well, their big scores at Charlotte have definitely leapt them back up into the top 5 immediately. Agustin Fernandez sits in 5th, the privateer from Argentina, who in the end had a bit of a difficult day at what was Charlotte in the end. Couldn't quite get the upper hand on McKinzie, who he did manage to beat at Road Atlanta. But indeed, for Fernandez, things went wrong, particularly with what was a dismal end to his racing in race number 2. As for Mike de Almeida, well, he sits in 6th place for Yellow Flag Motorsport, building some momentum there on 251 points. He's only the best part of 18 points ahead of Crop Promotions Mika Hendricks. And then we do have Cooper Akers in 8th for Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of Tyler Long, your leading overall Delta driver there for T0 Racing Ascent. But he's got to keep his guard up because Evan Clavio is not too far behind, and the Sim Racing Grid driver completes the top 10 there, a further 20 points behind. It's a further 3 to best of the rest driver John Daniels, the T0 Racing Summit, ahead of Dan McFarlane. Then we do have Connor Achitella in 13th place for Yellow Flag Motorsport, ahead of Wojciech Swierdowicz. And well, many will be asking the big question, what if at Charlotte? Because of course, many of you may remember that Swierdowicz may have been beaten to pole by Michael Polasek. However, in the early stage of the race number 1, they were very close together on lap 1, until they were not. We suddenly lost Swierdowicz, the engine blew up in the car, and sadly, that's where his race came to an abrupt halt, and he wasn't able to get the car repaired for what was race number 2, and therefore for Swierdowicz today, it really is one of those circumstances whereby we need to see him potentially bounce back, because if not, then this championship could be going the way of Polasek quite early on, although it's not to undermine McKinzie or company, but it definitely seems as though right now, for the Polish driver, things are not on his side. Matt Shepka sits in 15th there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport behind the breakfast for dinner driver, but he's ahead of Carl Trost, who put together 2 very good races last time out. Then we do have Major Monsivai, Francois Schenk, Zachary Leopold, and Jared Kalnins, who complete your overall driver's top 20. But now coming on to our classes, and we start with the Gamma class here. And what we can see in our Gammas, our newly introduced class, of course, for Season 16, Raymond Tiu has now moved to the top ahead of his teammate John Lauzon. And whilst the spotlight was on Tiu in particular at Charlotte, well, understandably, both drivers deserve the spotlight on them because they have moved their way back to the very forefront. Mike de Almeida sits in 3rd for Yellow Flag Motorsport, having moved up to there ahead of Cooper Akers, with the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, meanwhile, a further what is 27 points behind. John Daniels completes your top 5 there for T0 Racing Summit, but meanwhile, the man who emerged from Road Atlanta in our season opener, looking to have a big of a command over the championship. Well, that was none other than Dan McFarlane. Well, how that command has completely disintegrated out of his fingers as of what was Charlotte, and he needs to bounce back today in the number 23. Behind the Sim Racing Grid driver by only what is 11 points there, we do have Yellow Flag Motorsport's Connor Achitella, and then it's Matt Shepka, Major Monsivai, and Zachary Leopold, who complete your Gamma top 10. And behind the Formula Llama driver is Zachary Bowman. The 2 Zacharys are definitely fighting hard so far this season. They have Damon Mitchell a little bit further behind them on 65 points, and there's James Carr and Nicholas Sudik, who complete your Gamma standings. As the Deltas, well, we do take a look to those, and as we can see with your Delta standings, well, it's Tyler Long right now who leads the way, and indeed, after his incredible fight back in both races at Charlotte, understandably right now, the T0 Racing Ascent driver has proven to everybody that he's not just there to pick up wins, he's there to absolutely grind out the results if he needs to. Evan Clavio sits in 2nd for Sim Racing Grid, ahead of Carl Trost, with the T0 Racing Ascent driver there in 3rd place, but looking at the gaps right now, indeed, our top 3 quite a world apart from each other, and a world apart from the rest of the field. Chris McDonald sits in 4th for Gator Racing, and you had to bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we do just get ready to transition over to qualifying. We are going to just slightly obscure the standings, so that way they do not glitch out. We'll bring them back very shortly, as we can see all the drivers there absolutely queued up and ready to go, but it's just because we may remember last time out when we brought you the standings, everything did glitch out a little bit, but we will get those standings back in what will be the best part of about 10 to 15 seconds, and we'll continue to recap the story as our drivers make the way into the qualifying session. So into Logan qualifying they go, and we continue to walk our way through those standings, and as we do bring back the Delta class standings there we go, so let's continue that story. So outside of our top three, Chris McDonald really leads the way on 145 points. He's only ahead of Jared Calnins based on result countback, who sits 5th. And it's Ronald Meffo in 6th place with Gasparilla Motorsport ahead of Fuad Al Ridgely with the CRG driver there, 7th ahead of Gasparilla Motorsport's Kyle Flannery. There's 5 points between those two, and there's a further 5 points to Gareth McAllister for Monster Energy Racing. Then it's CRG's Kyle Murray, who completes the top 10. He was definitely in the thick of the fighting last time out at Charlotte and found himself missing a few body parts to the car, albeit minor ones, and also a bit of paint for some other machinery. Zach Kudaku sits in 11th place, the privateer ahead of Joseph Heath. And then we do have Sean Gurd, Jason Lynn, JB DeJoux, Jason Breen, Spencer Clark, Marcel Thomas, Mitchell Richmeyer, and Nick Bader completing your top 20 of the Deltas. But do keep in mind, of course, the man who's in 15th, JB DeJoux, he made his debut on the grid last time out for this season. And well, what a debut it was for him in the end. He ended up doing the most battling of anybody in the Delta class, and some say he emerged from Charlotte quite bruised, but his car definitely wasn't broken. But I can imagine he'll be hoping for a bit more of a straightforward day today, because it definitely was a round whereby some would imagine that the man went through absolute baptism of fire. But will it be a much more angelic race? We will see. Outside that Delta top 20, we do have Mark Darnell in 21st place, the Gator Racing driver ahead of Andy Kosick. We have Austin Dunbar equal points to him, but behind based on result countback. And then we do have Jeremy Barber and Kurt Smith completing that top 25. Adrian Fedorowski sits 26th there for 212 Racing. Yet to really see him find his form so far this season. He's ahead of Jonathan Bradford by 3 points. And completing that top 30 is Lewis Gilbert, Jess Rakowski, and Corey Lobner. Then we have Noah Namiark ahead of Roger Shank. And then last of your points holders at the moment is none other than Aaron Lahr there. In fact, he's got 0 points. Roger Shank's the last one there, so I do apologise for that confusion. And that's how your Delta standings stand after what is 2 rounds. As for the Teams Championships, we started with the overall Teams Championship. And here we can see that right now, Yellow Flag Motorsport, they lead by only 21 points over Beaver and D's, who had that lion's share of the points last time out. And Pennzoil Super Touring complete the top 3, with T0 Race of Descent in 4th place. And a sizable gap emerging from 3rd to 4th already, to the tune of almost what is 220 points there. It's 214 to be precise. And as we can see, Sim Racing Grid a further 9 points behind. Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport then, they looked to also get involved, a further 14 adrift in 6th ahead of Crop Promotions. And then Gasparilla Motorsport, Breakfast for Dinner, and Gator Racing complete that top 10. But again, noticing the slight split there between what is 8th and 7th, and therefore we have 3 packs in this Team's Championship already forming. See at G, they just sit outside the top 10 now on 197 points, 1 ahead of T0 Racing Summit, and it's Formula Llama, Monster Energy Racing, and 212 Racing, who hold the points all the way down to 15th place. As for your Delta Championship in the teams, here we can see it is T0 Racing Ascent, who right now, they've picked up the majority of the points thus far, but there's a long way to go in the Delta Championship, with Gasparilla Motorsport and Civ Racing Grid leading the chase, and then Gator Racing a further 25 points behind ahead of Sir G, and then Monster Energy Racing sitting 6th ahead of Kirby Enthusiasm Motorsport, with Breakfast for Dinner, 212 Racing, Crop Promotions, and T0 Racing Summit completing those standings. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that's a recap of the standings coming into this round. Let's take a look at what's going on in qualifying then, as our drivers, of course, do have their out laps, which they've already completed. And now they're on to the very first flying laps around here, of which they get free available at the Okayama International Racing Circuit. But who is going to be the one who puts it on pole? That's what we're here to see. Now, of course, if we have to base it off of the form that we did see last time out, then the theory should be that this man will put himself on pole. Keep in mind, of course, that he missed out massively at Road Atlanta, but he put himself second on the grid. And then at Charlotte, it was almost as if he said, you know what, I'm going to prove to everybody I can take pole. And in the end, he didn't just take pole position, he absolutely blasted his way to the top by 0.4 seconds. And well, Michael Polasek immediately sets the bar higher there at 37.141. 2/10 faster than anybody else. But speaking of anybody else, it's not just anybody else who's currently the second fastest out there. We have a few newcomers on the grid today. Let's welcome them to the grid, including, well, they're all privateers bar one. And here's the man who's not a privateer. He's part of the Site G crew. He is none other than Matthew Melior. And he makes his way onto the grid once again. He returns, having previously raced in the AlphaTouring Challenge in earlier seasons last year. And well, he's back in the number 12 car in his Audi RS3. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do. A very lovely looking car there, and well, currently the second fastest. So I can tell you one thing, time has not dulled his senses whatsoever, and welcome to him. We also do have another new name in the Alpha class, and here he is, albeit in an all-white car at the moment. I wonder whether that might be just a prototype spec to the paint, but either way, as he makes his way around, this is Gonzalo Fabi, who makes his way in towards turn number 4, and as he does so, well, he is definitely new to grid. He'll be in the number 3 today, well, we wish him all the best of luck on his debut, the privateer, and he's definitely right now looking good there, currently the third fastest of everybody. But where we've got 2 new Alphas who are on the grid, at least for the season, one is a debutant, meanwhile one is a returnee, we also have 3 new Delta drivers out there, and well, those 3 new Delta drivers, who do they include, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, we do have from Mexico, Angel Vencidias, as we do see him making his way on around here in the Honda Civic Type R, the FK8, and as he does so, well, we're looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to accomplish, because I can tell you one thing, he'll be feeling as though this is going to be a Delta class that's absolutely stacked. He's probably seen the time sheets from the previous couple of rounds, and thought to himself he needs to get right into the thick of it, as we briefly lose him, and then he reappears from the ether. We also do have new to the grid in the Delta class, Ryan Small here in the very colourful Hyundai Elantra in the number 11, and we love that car, and we do love the livery on it, and hopefully he'll be getting some love as well with regards to his battles today. And then we also do have new to Delta class, none other than what is Cameron DeMunk. And where is Cameron, I hear you ask? Well, we are trying to find him at the moment. He's so quick that our cameramen cannot find him out on circuit, and the answer in the end is he's currently in the pit lane, so he's not actually out on circuit at the moment. That's why they can't find him. But we wish all of our newcomers the best of luck in the Delta class, just as much our Alpha drivers. But speaking of Deltas right now, here is the man who's currently provisionally fastest of the Deltas, and my good lord, is he the quickest of them by some margin. It's none other than Fuad originally here in the Seat G machine, and well, he is looking very quick in the 119 as he makes his way around, and well, understandably, I get the feeling here he might be thinking he's going to be able to run away with this. Well, we will see what he's going to be able to do, but definitely right now, if somebody was going to run away with proceedings today, I think this is how originally he's trying to send a message to Tyler Long, albeit normally they do send messages via communications or text, but when you're in the car, you can't do that. So in the end, they do it by what they can do on circuit, and this is a message being sent to the Delta Championship leader right now, which is, Tyler, you may have led the headlines for the first 2 rounds, but how about you sit back right now and let somebody else take it? Now, that's not to say the T0 racing driver is going to let that happen, but I think we've got a bit of a rivalry building here, and that's before you consider the other stars that we saw last time out, including Carl Trost, who we see here right now, the T0 racing machine driver, the sister car to Longs, and right now, the number 21 driver here also looking good. But Chris McDonald also coming up a bit as all drivers come towards the end of this qualifying session. We're not too far away right now. Most of our drivers on their final flying laps, and those who have not set any, they don't have too long left. But it is Polasek who's currently topping the timings. Meanwhile, in what is the Gamma class, where it's Cooper Akers who looks to be taking his maiden pole position here, but not by many margins, because we can see 300s behind is the breakfast for dinner car of James Carr as he parks up there, no pun intended on the surname. And meanwhile, Dan McFarlane, well, after the dismal display that we saw at what was Charlotte, when nothing clicked together, that's not an insult to him. I think even he got out the car thinking to himself, what exactly happened there? Well, he's back today, and I can tell you one thing, the sim racing grid driver is looking much stronger, and he's only 7 thousandths behind Carr time, and that puts him 3rd. But Mika Hendricks leaps up to what is 5th place right at the end then, the Lego Brick Machine. He's looking very quick, and with 2 minutes still left on the clock, who's yet to do some laps? Well, Adrian Fedorowski, he's on his final lap. He's midway through it, coming down to the hairpin. And Fedorowski right now in the 212 Racer Machine. Do love livery on that car, I must admit. Really blends nicely the lines. And as he makes one out, he's blending his lines very well out of the circuit as well. Coming down through 6 into 7. You can just see in this latter half a lap how whilst you've still got the naturally wide road racing surface, the lower apex speeds, and the fact as well you have very quick successions of corners, it means that you really lose the ability to carry a lot of momentum. So it's these corners which are very much more about what is your ability to get the car rotated, whereas the earlier stage of the lap, it's about how much speed you can carry, whereas here it's point car out a corner and squirt the throttle as quickly as you can. But those are all part of the arts, the dark arts if you will, of driving the front engine front wheel drive TCR, the touring car racing machine, and that's why we love them. All these cars of course built to TCR racing specifications, the locked specifications for touring car racing around the globe, including what is in TCR USA or TCRA, TCR America as it's also known. And right now Fedorowski comes across the line, he doesn't improve, he stays 30th. But who else is out there? Spencer Clark is on a cool-down lap at the moment. He'll be starting 39th in this session. And going into the race ahead of Andy Kosick, not by much either. Kosick in the end 2 tenths behind, as we do see the Hyundai Elantra driver in the shining chrome blue machine, and well, definitely right now that's going to be getting some nice photography of it later on today, as our photographer, of course, of Jason Lynn from Glass and Steel Photography and Design, he'll be absolutely looking to capture that car in its full honour, indeed all the cars, and a huge thank you to Jason, of course, because all the photos you saw in the build up to today's programme, all taken by him. Some absolutely incredible photos, no doubt about it, and I can imagine right now that some of you might be wanting to get those photos, perhaps even get them framed on the wall. Whilst it's maybe sim racing, I can tell you one thing: if any man can make a photo on a simulator look absolutely real, it is Jason Lynn, especially some of those ones at night at Charlotte Roval. But meanwhile, coming to a man who's out of the circuit right now, this is Lewis Gilbert, but he's not going to be able to finish this lap. He's got no valid lap time, but what we have got validity of is the fact we're at the end of qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and that means it's time to head to the grid for our one and only 45-minute endurance race. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, the rain has come, and this is going to mix things up immediately here. There was a low chance at the start of the race the rain arriving, but still, the rain has arrived on the scene, and wet tyres are going on, and Michael Polasek is going to be the man who takes pole position here today for Yellow Flag Motorsport on a 36.902. But look at the margins, and what you'll notice is there, whilst we didn't catch it on camera, Gonzalo Fabi has closed the gap down to 1.5 tenths. The Argentine there doing a brilliant job to get nice and close towards the end of the qualifying session. He'll be pleased as punch with that. Behind them on row number 2, it's going to be none other than Matthew Melior. And, well, I can tell you one thing right now. Those two newcomers in the Alpha class for this season, they are not wilting to the threat of what is the pressure of being on this grid when you've got such a stacked number of Alphas right at the front of the field. Logan McKinzie sits in fourth, the second place man in the championship. He knows he's got even more drives to try and pick his way past the Pennzoil Super Touring. He might be feeling a little bit annoyed at that, but we will see. Of course, he'll try to make his feelings count on the racetrack, with Mika Hendricks starting 5th there for Crop Promotions. And, well, we know that Hendricks is normally a slightly stronger driver in the race than he is in qualifying, but he puts himself 5th, and he'll be looking to move forward forthwith. Then we have in 6th place his first Delta pole position of the season, and what a way to do it, out qualifying all the Gammas. It is third hour originally there, doing a phenomenal job for CHG. Well done to him. Head of Francois Schink, who starts 7th there for Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport. And then we do have behind the number 18 on that full throw of the grid, none other than Cooper Akers there, the Gamma pole sitter, his first pole position of the season for Pennzoil Super Touring. It's one of many firsts here, including a first time for what is second place on the qualifying grid of the Gammas for James Carr. He'll be happy with that performance, and the Breakfast for Dinner drive will complete the top 10 alongside Dan McFarlane, who returns to the form we saw all the way back at Road Atlanta in the season opener. Then behind them on row number 6, we'll see the pairing of none other than John Lauzon for Beaver and D's and Major Montevay. He'll be starting in 12th place, the privateer, behind Pennzoil Super Touring, Zachary Bowman. And then the leader of the Delta Championship, Tyler Long, will begin the day in 14th place for T0 Race and Ascent. Formula Llamas, Zachary Leopold starts in 15th there, ahead of Raymond Tew for Beaver and D's. And then we do have Matthew Shepka starting 17th for Curve Your Enthusiasm Autosport, ahead of Chris McDonald, who's had a best qualifying session today, starts 18th for Gator Racing. Completing the top 20, it's going to be Mike D'Almeida for Yellow Flag Motorsport and T0 Racing since Carl Trost. Watch out for both of them in their classes. They will be looking to move forward as quickly as they can in the race. I don't think they'll be pleased with the way qualifying's gone for them. Meanwhile, on row number 11, outside the top 20, it's Kyle Flannery for Gasparilla Motorsport, and he's going to go battling once again with long-time championship rival of Jared Kalnins. Then starting 23rd, going from photography to the racing once again, it's Gator Racing's Jason Lynn, ahead of none other than Corey Lobner, and behind them we will have the pairing of Jonathan Bradford for 25th, ahead of Gasparilla Motorsport's Ronald Meffo. Then from the American driver, it'll be two fellow countrymen in the form of Joseph Heath and JB Dejoux. Watch out for the 621 driver. I think he'll want to get his own back versus a few of his rivals today. Fairly, that is, of course. And completing your top 30, it's going to be Austin Dunbar and none other than Adrian Fedorowski. From the 212 racing driver, we will then have, starting in 31st place, Jalen Kuo, the Mid-Pack Mafia driver in the company of Gareth McAllister for Monster Energy Racing. And then we do have, starting all the way down in the paltry 33rd or 11th in the Gamma class, he is your second lowest Gamma driver on this grid. It is none other than John Daniels there for T0 Racing Summit. What went wrong, he won't know until after the day, but what he will know is he needs to make things right over 45 minutes in this one. He'll be in the company of Nick Bader, and then we will see Mark Darnell starting 35th for Gator Racing, ahead of Mid-Pack Mafia's none other than Angel Panella Soto. Then we have on row 19, none other than Marcel Thomas and Sean Gerd, and behind the Gasparilla Motorsport drive will be Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, Spencer Clark, and Andy Cossack completes that top 40. Outside the top 40, we're almost at the end of the grid, it's a big one. We can do see there, Mitchell Richmeyer starting 41st for Monster Energy Racing, ahead of the privateer of Ryan Small in his debut. Then we look to see Jeremy Barber 43rd, ahead of other debutant Angel Resendez. The Mexican driver then being followed up by Evan Clavio, who did not get a valid lap together, so Clavio coming into this one all the way away at the back. Well, that's going to be a big shot there. How far can he go through this one? Damon Mitchell as well, the Croc Promotions trying not having things to click together in qualifying, it would seem. And then we do have none other than Lewis Gilbert, and that is going to be Tim Driscoll making up your final full row on the 24th row. And last but not least, starting 49th, if they can get the car back out there, because there was a technical issue of it in qualifying, Cameron DeMunk on his debut. This may not be the debut he wanted, but with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, here we go. The lights are going on. Our drivers are all set to go green flag racing. And, well, it is going to be 3, 2, 1, and it's lights out and away we go here in Japan as our drivers get underway for 45 minutes of racing. They roar the way away, and as they do, well, we come all the way down towards turn 1 immediately with wet tyres on, the rain's falling, and Michael Polasek gets a good start here as they all make the way around. But right now, I can imagine several drivers, well, they'll be all tiptoeing their way as Polasek tries to lead them into turn number 2. A couple of cars going a bit slow there. Matt Shepka's had a slight off track, so has Austin Dunbar, but for the most part, they've all survived the opening corner, which is what we love to see. Now, there's a big slide loose there from Vanilla Soto, and in the end, he does collect it back together. This is where things now will get a little bit testy as they make the way up towards what will be turn number 4, because now they'll be able to be building confidence, but they'll also be looking at 3-4 wide as Vanilla Soto taps the rear. Oh, was the Honda in front, and couldn't quite see who it was, but it comes off badly, and Soto into the wall, and his race over as quick as that. You've got to feel for him because he was making progress, but then that's going to be a toe to the pits. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, we've had a change of position, and hold up a second, where is the man who started on pole position, Michael Polasek? We have lost him. Where has Polasek gone? I do not know. But what I can tell you is that he's had to go to the pit lane due to a technical issue of some description, unless I'm mistaken, but we have lost Polasek for this race. Oh, it is me. What on earth has just happened back there? That's gone around for what is our Kirby enthusiast of Autosport car friends, while Shink, who's had a bit old spin, and Shink going around like that, he toes back to the pit lane as well. It's drama for so many here at what is the Okayama International Circuit as they carry on. But as they do, we're more fighting to come from all the drivers, no doubt about it, as they all make their way into the braking zone this time, side by side there between the 41 of Corey Lobner and John Daniels. Daniels right now, he's absolutely galvanised. He is going for this, is Daniels. He's pushing hard, nice and early. We did say he had a difficult qualifying session. I think right now he's trying to prove that a difficult qualifying doesn't translate into a nightmare race. But meanwhile, the Tier 0 racing driver here, well, he's got a firm foe in form of Lobner, who keeps ahead of him just for now. But after one lap of racing, it's Matthew Melior who continues to lead ahead of Gonzalo Fabi. And then we do have Logan McKinzie and Mika Hendricks. That is your top 4. John Malzahn sits in at 5th, the leading Gamma driver right now. Having found his waiting to lead nice and early, with Cooper Akers losing out from his pole position. And then we do have behind them Fuad Al-Ridgely, the Delta pole sitter, still leading his class. However, he has dropped a couple of places overall ahead of Dan McFarlane. And it's Raymond Hugh and Major Bodsavai who complete that top 10. But many will be asking what exactly happened to our pole sitter, who completely drops to the back of the field. We are trying to understand what happened to Polasek, and perhaps we'll get a replay of it shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but this is going to completely open up the championship early on. I think he's had some sort of technical issue that's seen him had to go back to the pit lane. I think there was an issue with the car, but as they all come around right now, well, we are going to have a new winner here today once again, but who will it be? Well, forget that. Let's stay on what is happening right at the front of the field right now, as we've almost got 3 wide here. And for Dan McFarlane, well, I don't think he's going to be doing his best Ralph Wiggum impression of I'm in danger. I think he's going to be saying I'm the leader here as they make their way into the braking zone, albeit Raymond T on one side, Fuad Al-Ridgely on the other. Tiu's going to look around the outside there in the BMW's machine. And as they come on around, well, in the end, he won't be able to find it. Zachary Leopold as well. He's had a good start further back. You see him here right now in the Formula One machine, the number 72. Very colourful car, but it won't be colourful when it goes to the gravel. And Chris McDonald tucks up the inside there and says to him, thank you very much. I'll take that off you, Zach. And now I would imagine that Leopold's going to be thinking, okay, I kind of want that back because I want to go hunting after my Gamma peers. He looks around the outside and the answer is going to be denied. He's not going to be able to make that move happen, at least for now, but still more opportunity to do so here, as in the end, Tai Long and Cole Trost both want to have a bit of a shot at him. Going to be able to find it that easily. Further back down the order, we look to Spencer Clark. He's enjoying a good little battle with Ryan Small, and well done to Small. He's gained 4th place in Delta already in that number 11 Lantra, so he's made some steady progress here right at the start of the race. He's got more to do, to be fair, but I can imagine that right now his full process is going to be one step at a time. You've already gained 4 and you've got to settle into this race now, as all drivers definitely get themselves quite comfortable. But looking back to the front, there's your leader with Gonzalo Fabi right behind, and the all-white machine right now still chasing down the Seat G car as they come roaring on through turn number 2 for the 3rd time of asking, but there's a long way to go in this one. Ooh, bit of contact there, and that is going to be Zachary Bowman up the inside of Fuad Al-Ridgely, albeit they'll get away with that one. A little bump and rub like that. That's touring car racing indeed. It is what is we prefer, not to see contact, But of course, these TCR machines, they can take a knock or two. There's no doubt about it. And right now, third hour originally, well, falling backwards a little bit. And after that impressive qualifying performance, he's now got to try and impress with regards to defensive driving, because he's got McDonald and Long behind him. And these are the drivers he's battling with in the Delta class. But we ride on board here with Tyler Long. As he makes his way down the back stretch, we take a look inside the T0 Racing Centre Launcher. He's looking as cool as a cucumber right now. I can imagine it's nice and warm under that visor and in those racing gloves. And looking around the outside there, well, as he makes his way onto the brakes, I wonder if those gloves are from our sponsor Syncmesh or not, the prime, what is Sim Racing glove and apparel. But as he makes his way down in towards turn number 6 right now, well, he can't think about sponsors. All we can think about here is how does he find a way past McDonald. Now, keep in mind, of course, we are expecting our drivers to come into the pit lane at some point for a single tyre change. So with that mandatory pit stop, that's going to open up the doorway to opportunities later on. But right now, early on, we are only 5 minutes into this race. We've got a long way to go. I think, understandably, all drivers, we keep an eye on the weather conditions here and wonder if that rain is going to intensify or whether it's going to go away. And if it is going to go away, that's the thing they're all going to be worried about, because if the rain starts to drop, you don't really want to go into the pits early and have to put on a new set of wet or gamble to put on slicks when the conditions have not evolved to the slick tyres yet. They'll all be on the wet compound at the moment as they make the way around. That's the big thing that's going to change strategy around here, is in fact everyone might already be starting to think, I've got to go with the weather right now, and well, we will see. But down towards turn 1 they come, and right now Al Ridgely, McDonald and Long, your top 3 in Delta, they're all staying nice and firmly together. No real change between them all. Further back, Ronald Meffo in a bit of 2 wide here. That's with Matt Shepka. It's going to be Shepka on what is the rightier picture, getting ahead under braking, and Meffo in the end beating his fellow Honda driver under braking previously, but not this time, as Adrian Fedorowski now queues up behind. And Fedorowski's had a pretty static race so far. However, I would imagine he'll be quite happy with that, given the fact things have pretty much gone backwards in certain races so far this season, but right now he is thinking forwards. Towards the back of the field, we do have Nick Bader and Jeremy Barber. They're fighting over some scraps here for key points. But meanwhile, you can see also Jeremy Barber a bit further behind, and Joseph Heath, they're thinking to themselves, okay, what's going on? And the answer is they need to get a bit of a move on if they want to get involved. But hold up the phone, we've had a change. Oh, goodness me, there's contact there. Hendricks and Gonzalo Farby make contact, and Hendricks rolls backwards. Oh, goodness me. And John Lauzon in the end. Well, I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but a little bit of bad luck there, creeping in for John Lauzon, and in the end, Hendricks rolling backwards to the path. I don't think he intended to. I think he was holding the brakes, but of course, when the grass is as slippery as glass, well, the problem is, once you end up sliding around, it's very hard to get the car stopped, and Hendricks, I think, will put his hand up on that one immediately, but in the end, well, thankfully, it didn't end up in tears, although sadly, for Gonzalo Farby, it has ended up with him rejoining all the way down in 34th place, and right now, I could understand if that Veloster is going to feel a bit out of place, not just in terms of where he is in the running order, but in terms of the damage he's picked up. But as he continues his round around, well, very shortly, we're going to get you a replay of some of the big moments from what has been the opening few laps of the race, including that contact between the two of them there. Indeed, a bit of a big moment, as meanwhile Hendricks and McFarlane now fighting, and Hendricks trying to get himself back towards that top 3. So it has been a bit of a dramatic lap, but right now they'll try and calm it down. As Raymond Tew, meanwhile, well, we do ride on board looking down over the nose of the B&D's car, and well, as he makes his way out of turn 1 into 2, I think he'll be wondering how does he capitalise on this. Now do keep in mind, of course, in the championships we do have what is the absolutely brilliant battles that are going on between all these drivers at the moment, both overall and in the Gamma class, and therefore for the likes of Raymond Tew, it is a bit of a complex one here, because do you focus more on chasing down the Gamma results or holding on to those positions, or do you put the pressure onto what is your fellow Alpha drivers? Now, of course, McFarlane's the man in front of Tew, so straight away, McFarlane's an easy target. That's an easy one to work out. Beat him, you have to at all costs. How when you get to Hendricks, well, you want to ideally beat him, you'll get some more points, because we score points based on overall finishing position first and foremost, and there's bonus points for the classes. However, that's we are now starting to step into the realm of what is value-added points in the racing, and that's got to be the mindset of our drivers here. It's always risk versus reward, but that's why you see every driver of every class fight each other. There is no expectation that Deltas will walk out the way of Alphas necessarily, unless they're a lap down. Because of the fact if they're holding a position over an Alpha, they're normally getting more points as a result of it in their respective championship and in the overall standing. So there's always a fight to be had here in the Alpha Touring Challenge, and that's why after 16 seasons we are going so strong. We've never been stronger. But right now, as Tew continues to follow McFarlane around, well, number 23 Elantra, they're looking composed, but you can definitely see the difference in the body language of the Elantra versus the Veloster, with what is the much longer wheelbase of the Elantra, really meaning that the car has to shift more aggressively through through these wet conditions, whereas the Veloster with that shorter wheelbase, actually a much more compact car by comparison, and therefore naturally a lot more comfortable in these conditions, particularly at lower speed. And of course, that's why the key differences of the two different Hyundais, and we see a similarity, of course, between the Veloster and the Civic, where both do have that much shorter wheelbase compared to the other peers of the Audi and the Lancia, and it is one of their strengths in these tricky conditions. But meanwhile, Major Montserrat, we can see him there all over the back of Zachary Bowman. These two together, as we have had Fred Ridgely drop down the order massively, in fact, as Ridgely recently, and he falls now with Jared Cownin's going around the outside and there for third place in Delta. Ridgely's having a nightmare day at the moment, and I wonder why exactly, as while James Carr now adds to the woe. He somehow manages to keep it together. They all do. My good Lord, well done to them all for that. Those who particularly took their way over the apex curve at Sir Stellenbosch. You don't normally do that. And, well, we did see Jalen Kuo and Mike de Almeida both do the same as well. I can tell you one thing, there's not much standing water on that apex curve, because if there was, I think we would have seen TCR sliding sideways. The only other thing, of course, is the fact front engine, front wheel drive. One of the great things about these cars compared to most racing cars is the fact when the rear comes loose, all you have to do as a driver, it sounds counterintuitive, but you have to trust me on this, stamp the throttle down and straighten the steering wheel, and the car will suddenly grip up very well. That's the difference between these and, say, what is rear engine drive machines, in the fact, or rear wheel drive machines, I should say, let me get it right, is the fact when you're rear wheel drive, you have to counter steer normally and start to decrease the throttle, whereas in these, it really is get the steering pointed and push the throttle as hard to the floor, because otherwise the car's going to come very light over the rear axle very quickly, because everything's done at the front. But the battle in here with Al Ridgely and Jason Lynn getting past him, you just saw on camera there after 10 minutes. So right now, Al Ridgely seemingly struggling at the moment, but keeping in mind, of course, that he might have come here today with what might have been a bit of a mixed setup on the car, perhaps not expecting the rain to arrive. There was a forecast of about 16% chance of rain at the start of the race, up into 50% towards the end of the race. There's a big slide there for Jalen Kuo. He goes up the inside here. Well, he's bold, he's brave, and he gets it wrong. They come together, Duco, and also there, what was the Honda of none other than Corey Lobner, and Lobner rejoins, but for Corey, he rejoins a bit late as the whole field comes up behind him, and well, you can't fault him for his confidence, can you, Kulo? But unfortunately, you can fault him for the fact that he got it a bit wrong now under brake in his last bend, and right now that drops it down, and Lobner in the end will also lose some places as a result of that. There may be a conversation between the two of them after the race, but with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a trip back in time and look at some of the big moments from the earlier stage of the race, including firstly what happens to Max Shepka right at the start. So this was as we went green flag racing, and well, they made the way down to the braking zone. Shepka was on the outside here. You're looking at the purple-black Honda, and then on the outside, not as much grip there and cold tyres. He had a brief trip, but that lost him at several places. And by running out that wide, of course, with some gravel on the tyres as well, the grip levels were only going to get a bit worse. We then had this for Austin Dunbar, only moments later, I do believe. He was making his way down towards turn number 1 as well. What happened to him then as he made his way into the braking zone? And the answer is, in his Audi, does a Shepka, but goes a little bit wider, and in the end finds himself stuck on the exit curb. Then he has to take his time on, so not quite as comfortable in bringing that Audi back onto the road. But then we did have what was a huge incident for Angel Bonilla Soto. And this was Soto making his way up towards turn number 4, coming through 3, and as he did so, well, everyone was squirming left, right and centre. Oh, goodness me, that was the contact to the back of a Veloster in front of him, the all-black Veloster. And, well, for Bonilla Soto, he had nowhere to go there. He had so much speed by comparison. This was the on-board from his perspective. Let's listen in. As he tried to get the power down. Oh, goodness me. Well, Soto in the end, he could see the brakes were on too late for the number 25 and went straight into the back of what was Gareth McAllister's Veloster, and that was Bonilla Soto's race done and dusted, just like that. We then had this for James Carr, and also Francois Schink got caught up in a bit of drama. This was coming out of turn number 5 and in towards 6 and 7, and as he slid his way into the corner, well, in the end, the car sliding back at him and saying, no, you don't, and James Carr having to respect the fact that the breakfast for dinner Veloster was not gripped up there, and what easy mistake to make, to be fair. And then we had what was this huge moment for none other than Angel Resendez only at moments later. And, well, I believe Francois Schink got caught up in some drama. In fact, Resendez had to leave the pit lane, so I think he decided to start from the pit lane there and an issue with the car, and he very quickly in the end had to tow back to the pit, so it all went wrong for him. We had this for Gareth McAllister on lap number 1 as well, so some big moments still happening. This was McAllister in the 25. He'd already taken that big knock in the back from Soto's car, made his way out, and the rear let go, and in the end turned around there by the Elantra that had no way out, and unfortunately that was it for them. We then did have, of course, what was this on lap number 3? This was for Spencer Clark, as he was battling at the time with none other than what was, I do believe, Damon Mitchell. Went out wide, and the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport had plenty of enthusiasm, but sadly it was pushed to the curb, and he brought himself back together, but it definitely was a bit of a challenging moment for him. We also had what was a bit of a big moment for John Lauzon only moments later, but what preceded it was this. Gonzalo Fabi versus Mika Hendricks. Fabi went very deep defending. That was battling there with none other and then number 12, and in the end the two of them came together. So Fabi was looking for the move on Matthew Millier, and in the end, well, Gonzalo Fabi ended up in arrears. But John Lauzon, who we saw there having to come to an abrupt halt, this was his perspective. Now, he won't have seen the initial outcome of this until now. You see them on the left, and then he's making his way into the braking zone behind the number 4, and suddenly the rolling roadblock of Mika Hendricks there was deployed, much like a spike strip, and unfortunately that put a bit of a spike in Lauzon's momentum. But the number 77 tried getting it back together, and well, I'm sure they'll sort that one out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look back at your live racing pictures. So as we come back, we're looking to Corey Lobner as he carries his way on around. We in fact look to the exterior view. And in terms of time remaining, well, we spent a good bit of time there in some of our replays, losing about 5 minutes of our live racing. But still, it's always good to go back in time. We are now down to 30 minutes remaining. And right now, at the front of the field is Matthew Millier with the contact between Hendricks and what was none other than Fabi. It has opened up a bit of a gap, and intriguingly, Logan McKinzie has not really been able to capitalise for what's been happening in the front of the field. So Millier right now really bolting away at this point in the race. However, whilst things have gone quiet on the Alpha front, further down in the Gamma and Delta classes, we have got plenty of entertainment still going on, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. That's not to belittle our Alphas, but all the fighting now is definitely towards the bottom end of the top 10 and also outside of it. And as we can see here, this Major One survived, battling with Zachary Bowman. We'll be in a long line of cars, and they find themselves at the head of it. And, well, back at Bowman right now, in 5th place in the Gamma class. He'll be probably thinking to himself, okay, what do I do at this point? Because, of course, he's not just bringing Gamma cars along with him, he's also bringing with a hungry pack of Deltas, none other than Tyler Long leading it. And well, Tyler Long, once again, much like in race number 2 at Charlotte, really has carved his way through to the lead. But right now, he's got a lot more work to do to get the job done here with Chris McDonald right behind him. And Jared Kalnin's a bit further back, 6 seconds off these drivers as they make their way on to the next lap. But looking back right into the thick of the fighting, well, one of our senior drivers here on the grid in terms of his veterancy, not his age, you can never assume a man or a woman's age, is Damon Mitchell as he makes his way through Mike Knight Corner. And as he does so, well, up the inside, my goodness, behind that was Jalen Coulot, who again goes all in and does the number 0 driver. And right now, well, he's trying to go from 0 to hero. He's going for it. I do love the spirit that he brings. But for Kuo right now, I can imagine that if it doesn't work once, it doesn't work twice. I think the 3rd time he won't go for it. But meanwhile, Mark Darnell looking up the inside there, driving Bradford, the battle of the 2 Hondas. And Bradford, I just don't think has got the grip in these conditions at the moment. They are slippery conditions by default. And, well, a lot of our drivers are still using the racing line. It does seem to be, for the most part, the optimum line here. We do have quite a wet circuit as we look at the spray going backwards towards Darnell's car. Of course, Mark Darnell is going to have all that going through the windscreen, and therefore he's going to have those wipers on full blast. But meanwhile, as Damon Mitchell there looks for a bit of a cheeky move up the inside of Ronald Meffo, trying to get that move on. The Gamma driver right now really stuck in the thick of this, as meanwhile Jonathan Bradford, well, getting a bit of a better run there out of turn number 4, and that might just help him. As it comes down towards the braking zone, Damon Mitchell now right in the thick, running 26th, 12th for your Gammas. But for him, he just wants to clear a few more Delta drivers and get himself towards the top end of this running order if he can. Looks like the inside in the sunset machine. And well, the sun's definitely there, but he's not sunsetting his race at the moment, or hopefully not. As behind now, the battling intensifies. And Jalen Kuo all in here with Austin Dunbar pushing him along. So the 2 Audi drivers, they get a bit rowdy, coming through turns 6 and 7. And rolling the way onwards now towards that next braking zone. Will we see a bit more of a battle? Well, at the front, it's Kyle Flannery taking a cheeky peek there on Matt Shepker, but he can't quite find it. But in this group, at least, everyone right now, everyone wants to attack, but everyone knows they've also got to defend for the car behind. It is really, well, it's a bit of a poison chalice here whenever you go for the move, because you always got to be mindful of the guy behind. As he tries to carry on, well, we will see Mark Darnell and Damon Mitchell together here. Mitchell dives up the inside as meanwhile into the pit lane goes Jonathan Bradford, so Bradford gets his pit stop in early. And meanwhile, it's going to be Mark Darnell on the outside coming through turn number 11. Mitchell gives him the space to cooperate there. Well done to all three drivers for negotiating what was effective 3 wide for the best part of about 2 seconds. But as they come down, well, Lewis Gilbert's now got a battle with Darnell as Damon Mitchell seems to be the man who has created an opportunity here for Wes Gilbert on the inside in his Audi. And Lewis Gilbert will take that place. And now Mark Darnell's all out of sorts. He heads into turn number 2. He has to go defensive, does Darnell's. Ronald Meffo looks to get involved, riding on board here. And right now, the Gasparilla Motorsport driver in the 39, well, he wants to try and get that top 10 in the Delta class, taken away from Darnell, but he's going to need to be a bit more adventurous. He wants that because right now, Darnell, for as much as he is being passed, well, one thing is for certain, he is not falling to the rot. He is definitely stopping the drop down the order as best he possibly can as they make their way back onto the back stretches. And from these drivers, we look a little bit further up the road. We look to Cooper Akers, currently third place man overall, and your leading Gamma driver. He was the pole sitter. He lost the lead early on. He has now got it back, and I suspect aided quite significantly by what happened to John Lauzon with the Hendricks-Farby battle a bit earlier on, going a bit wrong coming out of turn number 5, but still, fortune has shined on him. Lauzon has not fallen away from this, it should be pointed out, by the way. Yes, he picked up a little bit of damage as Lauzon goes very sideways there, going through turn number 10. My goodness, John, keep it cool. The number 37 driver here right now, I'm sure he is, to be fair, but he is throwing everything at this in order to get back to lead. Lauzon wants to win here. You can tell the attitude of the car immediately pulling out to look for the move here on Logan McKinzie. And, well, Lauzon and McKinzie, these two go back the best part of 4 years in terms of their fights, albeit Lauzon right now, he wants to clear McKinzie. I think he's trying to send a message to the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, which is, simply put, you either get a move on or I will. And Logan McKinzie right now, well, I don't think McKinzie's not trying. I think he just hasn't got any more in the tank ready to close down Akers, but I also wonder whether he's backed off slightly. Well, he's not going to be back off anymore as Lauzon comes absolutely as brash as a bullet up the inside, and in the end McKinzie sees it coming, uses that outside line there where there's less water standing because the way the water flows down the tarmac in order to get the better grip on exit. And Lauzon right now, the bit is between his teeth. He has absolutely fried everything at this, and Logan McKinzie, I think he's going to have to go more and more defensive if he wants to hold on to that fourth place. I don't think it's going to be a question of when Lauzon can make a move or if it is he is going to make one, and McKinsey's got to be ready for it. Major Mod Survive, meanwhile, he is running 6th in Gamma, or 9th overall, and right now the number 58 driver here still close behind. And I did notice there what was the Hot Wheels logo on the side of the car there, and well, I wonder if one day there'll be a little bit of a die-cast Hot Wheels machine of that wonderful Veloster. Indeed, all drivers should have one made, to be fair, but the point being right now, I think he's going to feel he's hot behind the cockpit as he rolls his way onwards behind Zachary Bowman. Well, these two, they do have a 7-second gap that's grown to Dan McFarlane up the road from them, but they are bringing the leaders of the Delta class behind them. It is looking very close between them all. Raymond to you, meanwhile, he's now looking to defend here versus Dan McFarlane. As McFarlane's going to try and go around the outside. In fact, he goes up the inside. My apologies, getting the two cars mixed up. And the Viva D's driver in the end, well, he loses a place there. I think he did get caught up by a slight off-track coming out of turn number 9 for Lauzon, and that caused you to have to back off. And McFarlane, there's still the opportunity. Now, as for the drivers who did come into the pits, we did have a couple come in, including what was none other. Now, I do believe the leading man who has now pitted, of Damon Mitchell. And, well, why is this significant, I hear you ask? Well, the reason why it's significant is because of the gamble it represents here on strategy. By pitting early, what they've done is they've tried to get themselves out of the traffic up the road, albeit Damon Mitchell has found more traffic, and as he makes one round, in fact, Mitchell has not pitted. I've just been corrected in my ear because he did start from what was towards the back of the running order. However, those who have pitted, well, the gamble is Austin Dunbar has come in the fact that they will find themselves coming out into traffic, but also are the conditions going to stay in the realm of what is the tyre they use, and i.e. does it continue to rain, because the rain is gradually stopping. It is falling at certain parts of the circuit. The intensity has definitely reduced significantly. We will see. And that's where the gamble is. But meanwhile, the Marcel Thomas machine, the number 228, makes its way behind Evan Clavio. And Evan Clavio today, well, this has definitely been a bit of a fall from the expectations of the first couple of rounds for Clavio. As 187 driver here gets all caught up behind. But understandably here in the SRG machine, championship is made up of multiple rounds, not just one or two. And therefore this might just be the round that's caught him out of this bit. To be fair, the Okayama Circuit, before you consider the rain, catches many a driver out, as that was a car almost taking our cameraman's camera out of his hands. And that was a run wide there for Corey Lobner and James Carr. And well, as they both make their way down now, well, James Carr's further up the road, so it was Lobner there who ended up going very wide, and you see him side by side there with Ronald Meffo at the inside, and Ryan Small thinks about getting involved as well, but his answer sadly is going to be he can't, because he's got to look more defensive versus Clavio, still trying to nip and tuck the Haas here, but Clavio looks up the inside, Small goes very wide, and in the end Small does take to the dirt, and as they make the way towards turn 7, Clavio picks up another place. It's not been easy for Clavio whatsoever. He is still trying to make the hustle on this one, but every place right now definitely feels as though he's having to pull hen's teeth in order to get this done because of how gradual his progress has been. That's as much to say with regards to the fact how confident and also when it's competent our drivers are here in these wet conditions, as it is the nature of the circuit, how it does not bode well with wet weather. That's why Okayama was selected, of course, for one of our rounds, because it is one of those circuits that mix things up, as that's John Lauzon running wide there at turn number 2, and Dan McFarlane does not wait. Lauzon slides one way, he slides the other way, slides again, it's full counter steer, does he get stopped? No, he hits the wall, oh my goodness, and he hits Logan McKinzie as well. For John Lauzon, it all came out of alignment, and in the end, Logan McKinzie just in the wrong place at the right time, and both drivers there will see their races have to tow to the pit lane, and well, it has all fallen apart, but suddenly the battle at the front of the Gamma field absolutely intensifies. It's been turned up to 11, as Spinal Tap would say, and well, Cooper Akers right now being passed there by Dan McFarlane, who somehow, some way, has just found a whole haul of pace, and McFarlane right now absolutely on a mission here. This is Road Atlanta Dan McFarlane talking to the grid, but not when he does it like that, as he runs wide, coming out of turn number 6, and Cooper Akers is back there with him. Raymond Hughes right behind, he's free for the Gamma lead right now, fighting for 4th place overall. Akers puts himself right in the middle of the road, and my goodness, here comes Tew. Tew's on the inside, they all squeeze into the apex, and McFarlane goes around the outside. I don't believe it, he's managed to find the space. He takes the lead back in the class. Cooper Akers right now back on the inside here of Tew, and Tew finding the grip as well. There's grip on the outside of these corners. They're finding it so quickly as the rain intensifies here. My good lord, you could not have made this up. This wasn't on the script. And as they make their way down in towards the final corner, well, still 19 minutes to go. Still plenty of time here. Still plenty of opportunities, both on track and on strategy, as Logan McKinzie, of course, with that toe to the pits. Well, our timer tower says he's in the lead. He's definitely not. He's a lap down at this point, but just forgive our timer tower. It's a little bit slow, but the race here right now is absolutely as quick as you like, and as they make the way towards another lap, well, right now, there's still more to come here at Okayama, ladies and gentlemen. Don't switch off. Don't fall asleep, because I get the feeling right now that's just a taste of the madness that is to come. But the managed madness, as we say, as meanwhile, well, we haven't talked about the Delta leaders for a bit of time, and Tyler Long still leading ahead of Chris McDonald, with Jared Calnins having been relegated a bit further back. But to give credit where it's due, the number 20 driver here in the Elantra, he's a bit lonely out there, third of the runners, but I think he's very happy with the way things are going, as into the pit lane has come Mike de Almeida, so he's made a trip. We've got a few more drivers who are making trips as well, and well, it's going to be now a question of strategy here, and how does that work out? But before that, we come back to the battle for the Gamma lead, and well, this is part 2, ladies and gentlemen. Tew versus McFarlane, and Akers at the back of the group here, and Dan McFarlane backing off on the inside on the left of your picture. Raymond Tew goes on through. Cooper Akers there. Well, he decides not to give. Oh, but Tew outbreaks himself. He ends up in the gravel. So Tew losing out. And right now, well, everyone's got to keep a cool head here. And I think Tew just coming in a little bit too hot, thinking he got it done. And then suddenly it was not done. And now we're making his way onto the back of these Gamma drivers again. I think he'll be praying that McFarlane and Akers fight each other sooner rather than later, so he doesn't lose effective race time. But if all that's happening, meanwhile at the front of the field, there's been a complete change of pace between the top two. This is Matthew Millior, your race leader over in Alpha. And behind him, yes, it's the Lego machine of Mika Hendricks. And Hendricks, over the last 3 laps, has been ripping the lead down at a second a lap. Hendricks is flying right now. I don't know what's clicked. I wonder where it's the fact we've had an absolute spurt of rain recently, and suddenly the circuit's dampness has increased. I think Hendricks has got a car that's completely set up for the wet here. And it does better and better the wetter the track surface. There are different grades of wet setup, whereby essentially you set the car up with regards to the suspension and also the amount of aero to the conditions. And when it is very wet, you want to add as much rear wing onto the car as possible. This is a high downforce circuit by default, but most likely, I suspect Hendricks has put as much rear wing on this car as possible to give him all the confidence of the rear to settle the car down. You can just see it. Look at the spirit he has as he's riding the back of Milia's car right now. And to be fair, our Audi leader has not been slow in that Audi. He has been quick. He has been very impressive. But Hendricks right now, I think it's a question question of when, not if he's going to be able to make this move, because here they go side by side down the back stretch here, too wide, and as they get ready to go onto the brakes, they've got a little bit of lap down traffic in front of them, but right now Hendricks does back out there, or does he not? No, he does go for it in the end. The camera angle being deceptive. Too wide they enter, but now it's the switch to the triple left, and this is where Emilio just needs to park the car at the apex, but there's a lot of standing water on the inside line here. He's got to be careful with it. That can unsettle the front end, but not so for Emilio. He gets it nicely tucked together as we look out the rear window of the number 12 from Canada, and right now the CG driver, well, how about this? He returns to the grid for this season as this round. He finds himself battling for the victory, and Hendricks disappears. No, surely not. No, he does come back. Thank goodness. I was going to say, no, please not a technical retire for Hendricks. Not at this point. Not when it's getting so good. That's robbery, and well, I'll be absolutely screaming about it here as meanwhile Emilio goes wide, and here comes Hendricks up the inside of it towards turn number 10, and as they do, when in the end they can't fight any further because of the pit lane entry, so Hendricks has to back off there, and Matthew Emilio right now, whether he's going to hold on for another 15 minutes like this, my good lord, he's going to deserve the championship by the end of this race, let alone the end of the season, but he's run wide and get out the final corner, and Hendricks on the inside. Surely Hendricks has got this. There's no way back at this point other than to accept it, or is there, as Hendricks goes nice and tight. And we can see Melia there switching back. Hendricks runs just that little bit deep, but now he will go to the inside for turn number 2. He will open up the corner as much as possible here to make sure that Melia cannot go around the outside of him as easy as 1, 2, 3. But as they exit the corner, right now this fighting, well, what it's doing is cost them so much time to the rest of the field. Albeit before Lane Akers and Bowman, they've got a long way to go as pit stops are occurring as well. Raymond Hughes into the pits. What is JB Dejus also into the pits. So therefore we are keeping an eye on that. We are ever present the fact that there's a lot of strategy going on. But when the lead battles this good right now, we have to forget about it for a brief moment as they make the ones on the backstretch. Now Emilio coming back at Hendricks. Well, whatever Hendricks had in the tank when he was the second place man, son, it's all slipped out of his fingers now that he's become the lead car, because we can see Emilio here looking up the inside onto those brakes. The Audi hasn't quite got the brakes, so they've lost her, but still Emilio's going to give it everything he can as we jump back on board with the Audi Sport Customer Racing Machine from CG. We can see the Canadian, as much as he's huffed and puffed, he does have to give it for a brief moment, but he lets Hendricks be the man who now finds the traffic first as he bounces off the limiter there. You can see it briefly on the dashboard. The gearing of this Audi so tightly wound in third and fourth gear, and therefore he's constantly hitting the rev limiter as they make the way in towards the left-hander here at turn number 8. Well, this is not good for either of them. There is plenty of traffic in front, albeit that's Kostic and Lauzon enjoying their own race, and I think in the end and John Lauzon has just found his way past Andy Kostic as they fight over 36th place, but understandably here, well, Hendricks peels into the pits. He decides, right, it's time to come in. Melior stays out. Well, I think for Matthew Melior, this might be a gamble that's not going to work, because unless he can find a magical way through quite quickly here, which he may just be able to, given the awareness of the drivers, as there goes Andy Kostic immediately put it over. Well, this could work out, but where does it put Hendricks in the running order? As Dan McFarlane carries on his journey, as does Cooper Akers. Where is Zachary Bowman? He's into the pit lane as well. And well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a quick look back in time at what exactly happened in the John Lauzon Logan McKinzie incident. And here is the replay, ladies and gentlemen, as we go back to lap number 14. So this was the run coming out of turn number 2 when he was battling so hard with Dan McFarlane for second place in the Gamma class at the time. Runs out wide at 2, rejoins, but as he does so, it just upsets the line he takes into Moss S at turn number 3. Takes a lot of curve, that curve that so many drivers have abused, and in the end, there's too much water on it. The car's unsettled. He goes toward at that point. The front right suspension's gone. Lauzon is just a passenger in that scenario, and collecting at Logan McKinzie as a result. You've got to feel for both drivers. A nightmare moment, but with that, we head back to your live racing. And so as we come back here, and well, indeed all the racing right now absolutely building up to a crescendo with not long left in this post-round broadcast. So Dan McFarlane goes deep there, and well, right now the number 1 Gamma driver in the number 23 with that error, is he going to be opening the door to another driver as we look to Mika Hendricks. Now remember, of course, Hendricks has pitted. He is the highest placed driver who has taken a pit stop in this race, and he finds himself battling with David Mitchell and Lewis Gill, but this has not worked out for Hendricks at all as he's making his way backward out. I wonder whether right now Hendricks has actually put himself into a corner on this one, because Mitchell, all he cares about at this point is making sure Lewis Gilbert doesn't get past him. I don't think he knows the bigger picture. Not that he should have to know the bigger picture, to be fair, as David Mitchell goes up the inside there in the Sunset Machine. Lovely move, and David Mitchell's definitely made up plenty of place in this race, having started all the way down in 46th. Well, how about that? All the way up to 11th place. He is still to pit, as we're to understand it, but the point being, he's still going to be on course for a very solid result here, given how the day has started. And Cooper Akers makes his way into pit lanes. Look out my Conte booth window. So Akers is now reacting to the pit stops, but is anybody else? No, they do have to come in and change a tyre, however. They also most likely will need a quick splash and dash of fuel in order to make sure they get to the end, although fuel consumption, understandably, is going to be significantly less than normal, given the fact we are under wet conditions, so therefore they are not accelerating as aggressively or for as long compared to as we're in the dry. But from everything that's happening right now with Tyler Long, Chris McDonald and Jared Calnins, look at this man. He has caught massively up to the back of McDonald and Long over the last couple of laps. Calnins has brought that gap back down from what was 5 seconds to 2 seconds here. Has Calnins got a strategy here that we don't know about? Has he been backing off and just fuel saving and managing those wet tyres? Because keep in mind as well, yes, we've had a wet surface all the way through this race, and we've definitely had a continual refresher of that wet surface with the amount of rain that has come and gone. But these wet tyres, they are going to wear down over time. The tread blocks on them that enable the displacement of the water, like you would a road tyre, and therefore that's why they are the wet tyre, because they do not have the issue, unlike a slick, of being able to displace water, where a slick has no tread blocks on it at all. That's why the slick, when it goes onto a wet surface, it just rides the water. It essentially ice skates over it, the best way to think about it, and that's what we got as aquaplaning very quickly. Well, on these wet tyres, the more they push them, the warmer they get and the more they wear the blocks down, and as you get towards the end of the life of the tyre, you are gradually converting it into almost what is effectively a slick tyre, so it loses its ability to displace water over time. So it's a very odd balancing act on the wet tyre. You have to keep it warm enough to work well on the wet surface, but not too hot in order to make sure it can continue to displace the water and you don't burn the tread down. And that's why you'll see drivers every so often duck onto a wetter patch of the circuit if it's getting too hot to cool it back down to prevent the degradation. The point being, Calnins over the last couple of laps has found some pace out there, and he's showing it right now as into the pits comes Measure Montevay from what was second in the Gamma class, effectively fifth, we believe, or it may have been third, in fact, as we're getting a bit of a shuffle in strategy here. Plus, we've lost a couple of visibility of drivers who did come into the pits during that replay. Understandably, we are trying to fit all the jigsaw pieces together, but right now, well, Tyler Long has been released as your Delta leader ahead of McDonald and Calnins, but I'm not sure this is the way the Delta class is going to finish here, as Long right now is being reeled in. McDonald is not matching him on pace. Calnins, however, is the threat man here in the number 20. He's looking very quick. Further back, Cooper Akers battling with Raymond Tew. Well, they both came to pits at different times, and Tew has got ahead of Akers as a result of strategy. So this has worked out massively for him. But can he hold on just for a little bit longer as more pit stops come? We do have Lynn into the pits. Also, we do have Mitchell into the pits and Darnell. We're still seeing a bit of a shuffling there at the time tower. 9 minutes and a final lap left on the clock at this point. And they do have to pit at some point. It is a mandatory requirement, but I would imagine everyone who's not pitted, but inside the top 10, if not the top 5, they are all thinking one thing and one thing only. Go literally until the last possible moment, because right now you cannot afford to be caught in a battle. Now, Tew and Akers, they are fighting on circuit like they would have been before the pit stops. They are together. But the one driver right now who I think is finding himself up against a bit of a proverbial brick wall of battling is Mika Hendricks, where he's come up behind drivers or come around drivers who have yet to pit. So technically they are in a different race because they are not on the same strategic cycle as him, and he's had to fight his way through. That is what costs you time. And Matthew Millier on the last couple of laps has actually been lapping at approximately 0.8 of a second quicker than Hendricks whilst Hendricks has been battling. That has swung the gap in the favour of Melior, but will we see that paid in kind when he comes into the pits? As Dan McFarlane now makes his way very quickly and very in a docile manner there into the pit lane from the lead of the Gamma class. Where will he be come the end of it? We have Zachary Leopold. He is currently second of the Gammas, but yet to pit. The same with Matt Shepka. These two have come all the way through the field from the bottom end of the top 20, if not the bottom end of the top 25. They're looking very impressive out there as a little bit more rain falls, but the rain is gradually declining here at Okayama. Indeed, right now the prefecture absolutely delivering in the land of the proverbial land of the rising sun, given how far east it is on the globe. That's why it gets its nickname. But meanwhile, here in Japan, well, I can tell you one thing, it's not just the sun that's rising, but also the intensity of this championship, and we're only in round number 3 of 10. But as everyone pushes onwards, well, the battling that calms down on circuit, it does seem as though right now the battles are much further down the order. You look to Corey Lobner here, battling with Ronald Meffo. He's trying to make a bit of a move, albeit as we have more pit stops playing out. Now, where is none other than Dan McFarlane? Here is McFarlane on the back of Hendricks. So he has come out behind, but he has come out ahead of Raymond Tew and Cooper Akers, as there's Gonzalo Fabi behind, the man who got caught up in that incident with none other than Hendricks earlier on. He's made his way all the way back up to 7th place. If he can hold that and doesn't have to come in again, that's going to be an incredible piece of work there from Gonzalo Fabi, although I suspect he may have to come in for the tyre change. But point being, McFarlane has cleared Tew and Akers. So Dan McFarlane is now effectively your Gamma leader, unless Zachary Leopold can absolutely cut his time in half in the pit lane when he goes to that tyre change. So we know what our top 3 is now in Gamma. Meanwhile, we're still waiting to see what happens between Hendricks and Milieu, and we're still waiting to see how the Delta lead shapes up, because Jared Kalnins has opted to pit. Here he is, he's come up behind Major Montevay. He will have the draft to the Veloster in front of him. That will help him. But hold the phone, ladies and gentlemen, because a call's coming in, and it's a call to the pits to Matthew Milieu as he makes his way down in the Audi. This pit stop needs to be perfect. If he gets it right, he will be your leader over in Alpha. If he gets it wrong, then it will be a battle between him and Mika Hendricks to the finish as he makes his way down. Here is Hendricks meanwhile. Can we look to the blimp camera to see where they are? Yes, we can. So Hendricks right now tiptoeing his way up the hill through turns 8 and 9 from the left in towards the right. And as he makes his way around, well, right now for Mika Hendricks, and it's all about one thing and one thing only. Keep it together. Don't make any errors at this point he can't afford to. Melior, meanwhile, still parked to the end of the pit lane. He is obscured there by the pit walls, but you can see exactly where roughly he is. But here comes Hendricks then through the final corner, and we make our way back down to trackside cameras. And as we do, Melior leaving the pit lane. Hendricks is a long way back. I don't think Hendricks has got this. I think he's cost it on strategy, and here we go. Hendricks makes his way along. Melior makes his way out the pit lane, and there is your overall leader in this race. Once Zachary Leopold, who goes to the bottom of your picture, comes into the pits, Matthew Melior right now leads with only 5 minutes left on the clock and a final lap to go. He has timed this perfectly, and Hendricks in the end, by finding traffic when he's come out of the pits, it has cost him to the total of what is 4.5 seconds overall. That's how it has swung in terms of strategy right now, but you can bet your bottom dollar that right now Mika Hendricks is absolutely going to be on the attack, as meanwhile here comes Gonzalo Fabi looking for a move on Dan McFarlane. And well, Fabi at this point, I can tell you one thing, he's racing this one right now to try and finish 4th here, or 3rd what it will effectively be when Leopold comes into the pit. I think Gonzalo Fabi may have outfoxed us all if he has gone for that tyre change early on. Indeed, we didn't quite see all the pit stop there, so we don't have all the information available unless he's going to go all the way towards the penultimate lap. But as Fred Ridgely has made his way into the pit lane for what I believe is a second time today, so Ridgely is going down the order. Well, look at this pack that he has left behind. It is an absolute Goliath haul here of Delta drivers, and Damon Mitchell, the Gamma driver. And I think this has been his story today for Mitchell. It has been. He's been surrounded by Gammas every second of the way, and right now they're all trying to pull him in. We're surrounded by Deltas, I should say. Let me get it right. And as he makes his way down to that braking zone, Joseph Heath and Mitchell Richmeyer are both enjoyed a bit of a scrap here. And right now the Monster Energy drink machine goes on the inside there. He's trying to take 9th place and Delta off of him. And well, looking bold, looking brave. Can he get it done? The answer is not quite, but he's going to try and outrun him. As into the pits comes your race leader overall, Zachary Leopold, which will promote Matthew Melior back into lead. That'll be the last of the big pit stops that will have played out. But in foreground, a camera shot, that's Lewis Gilbert taking 7th place, back off of Evan Clavio in the Delta class. Albeit Clavio now trying to go for the switchback on the outside, but he's going to quickly find he's going to run out of tarmac on that outside. Not because of the fact that Gilbert's going to force him off the road, but that's the way the corner goes. As Kyle Flannery there, he also finds himself on that outside line and suddenly loses time and space to what is Heath and Richmeyer. And now it's job for Bradford for Coast Company. As you can see there, Corey Lobner also trying to get into the mix a little bit with Fred Ridgely a bit further back. There is Ridgely right now in the mix behind Austin Dunbar, the two Audi drivers together. And for Ridgely, this race has gone so very much backwards, unfortunately for him. But to be fair, taking a maiden pole position in qualifying, that's a huge achievement in the Delta class, and out qualifying all the Gammas, he's going to give himself a pat on the back for that one, even if the race has not clicked together the way that Fuad would have liked it to. But meanwhile, Marcel Thomas and Mark Donnell behind. They all queue up in here, get ready to fight, albeit Thomas there a bit too eager to look for a move into turn number 10. Bumps the back of the Audi driver. But I can imagine that right now, as he rolls his way down in the Mickey Mouse machine on the side of it, well, Darnell will be very keen to also try and capitalise on this. As the two Honda drivers get ready to do battle down the start finish straight. There you can see Thomas on the right of your picture. Darnell we're riding on board with. And into that braking zone he goes. And as they do, well, right now, Darnell for all the pressure. Oh, my good lord, that's a jump scare there. That's John Lauzon just coming absolutely sideways through the picture. And, well, nobody expected that. I don't think we're going to be able to get a replay of it right now, though, ladies and gentlemen, because, oh, my good lord, and it's all kicking off. That's Cal-Nins. Cal-Nins, the Delta driver, who was looking so strong in the late stages. He's been turned in contact. Major Mod survived there at what is turn number 6. He's gone it around. And as he goes to rejoin, well, he's still third in Delta, but he's going to lose some overall places as Zachary Bowman and James Carr have both coming through. Adrian Fedorowski's a lot further back, but credit where Studer Fedorowski, the man who started 14th in Delta and all the way down in 30th, he is 14th right now overall and 4th in class. He's got Mike D'Almeida and Zachary Leopold behind him, 2 Gamma drivers, and Jason Lin's on the back of this group as well, another Delta. But Fedorowski right now has gone under the radar with one of the drives of the season here to make his way through. He's just kept out of trouble, and, well, what a brilliant run he's having. But as he makes his way around right now, he wants to try and hold on versus D'Almeida just for a couple more laps. Our leaders have gone on to lap number 24. I think we are going to get one more lap after this one. We will see. It's going to be very close. And in fact, we will be able to confirm that information very shortly, as we are just doing some quick mathematics. And I think in the end, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be seeing what will be only 24 laps. We are on to our last tour of the circuit here today. And right now, well, the battling has not abated. It's only grown, just like the rain. When it's slightly gone away, it's then come back full force. It's given us a few jump scares as well. And for our drivers right now, everyone who gets the checker flag is an absolute star in their cars. There's no doubt about it. Looking a bit further back, Evan Clavio and Lewis Gilbert, they fight over 7th in Delta. They are still very close together as here comes Clavio looking for the move. He wants a few more points while this is done, but Gilbert says to him, try as you might, I'm not going to back off there. And, well, right now these two drives still together just for that little bit longer. Coming down in towards the left-hand turn number 2 right now. It's Clavio right in the back of Gilbert there like a bad rash. And, well, we can also see that Damon Mitchell trying to keep Rich Meyer behind. But to the front, and here is Mika Hendricks. And Hendricks has found his way past Matthew Melior. That's happened off camera. We're going to need to get a replay of that after the race ends. But Melior's had a bit of a moment. I think he's had it off track. And, in fact, yes, he has, I believe. And Hendricks is to lead this race. Well, as he makes his way through, we may have missed the overtake. But one thing we won't miss is the fact that Mika Hendricks right now, what a race it has been. And it was up and down for so many in the Alpha class and overall, but not for the Lego driver, who in the end, he may have bricked it on strategy, but he's going to put all the pieces together and take the win here at Okayama. Mika Hendricks wins for the 2nd time this season ahead of Matthew Melior, who finishes your runner-up. Dan McFarlane is your Gamma winner, 3rd overall ahead of Gonzalo Fabi, who recovered well to 3rd in the Alphas. There'll be Raymond to you, your runner-up there in Gamma, ahead of Cooper Akers, who takes his best result of the season with 6th place, ahead of Tyler Long, who adds another Delta win to his basket, ahead of John Daniels, with Chris McDonald runner-up in the Delta class, and Major Bonsavai completes that top 10. 11th will be Zachary Bowman in a solid effort, and Jared Cal-Nins and comes through right at the finish to take 12th place, 3rd in the Delta class, ahead of James Carr, with Adrian Fedorowski 14th there, and White Saskatchewan drives behind him. Mike D'Almeida completes the top 15 ahead of Zachary Leopold, with Jason Lynn ahead of JB DeJoux, and then we do have Matt Shepka 19th, with Lewis Gilbert completing his run to a top 20 finish. Here he comes out the final corner in 7th place of your Delta drivers. He makes his way along, and, well, gradually coming to the finish here. He made his way down in the end into the depths of Delta, and there he found a 7th place finish ahead of Damon Mitchell, ahead of Mitchell Richmeyer. And then we do have Joseph Heath, Carl Flannery, Ronald Meffo, Jonathan Bradford, Evan Clavio in the end, and Corey Lobner, Austin Dunbar, and Fuad Al-Ridgely completing your top 30. What a race, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness, as we've got a couple more drives still coming through in this one, including the ever-enthusiastic but slightly mangled car of Jilin Kuo, who in the end gave it everything today in the Audi. You can't fault his enthusiasm, to be fair, but 21st place in the Delta class was the best he would be able to find. As Mark Darnell follows him behind, I think we've still got a couple more cars to see their finish line. Here's one of them, Spencer Clark. And then the last will be Sean Gurd on the lead lap, who's just a bit further back. But here comes Spencer Clark. It's been a tough race for him today. Indeed, he has fallen into what has been the challenges at Okayama. But the wet weather has definitely delivered a race which is going to go on in memory here for Season 16 in our 5-year anniversary season. And, well, as our drivers cooling down for Sean Gurd, let's see him to the finish line as well, ladies and gentlemen. They all deserve a round of applause. The Gasparilla Motorsport driver just as much as any for what has been an absolutely entertaining race and for braving what has been some rather tricky conditions. But Gurd comes to the line, and as he does so, he will be 38th and 24th in Delta today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as things cool on down, we are going to go to the results shortly. But first and foremost, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened right at the end between Mika Hendricks and none other than Mathieu Melior for the win of the race. And here was the replay. So this was the pair battling their way up towards what was going to be turn number 4. And in the end, well, it was a small mistake there for Mathieu Melior. Just ran himself deep when he didn't need to. That was the pressure. And Hendricks in the end just pressured Melior into a mistake on that final lap to take. Well, in fact, the penultimate lap, as I'm hearing Melior, on lap number 23. And to take the lead, and after that, well, Melior so strong at coming back earlier on in the race, but not this time. Hendricks was able to take that position and just walk away from it. So that explains what happened in the end between them, and as we make our way back to our live circuit side pictures, what a race it has been, and we owe you some race results. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, as we come back to our race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And indeed, thankfully, we can stop time there and stop the rain from falling. Here they are. And as we can see, after an incredible 45 minutes of racing here for round number 3 of Season 16 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, brought to you on iRacing, sponsored by Syncmesh and also none other than Glass of Steel Photography and Design, it was Mika Hendricks who took overall victory for Croc Promotions by 2.5 seconds over CHG's Mathieu Melior. The Canadian driver, to be fair, on his return to the grid, what a return it was. Yes, some would say lucky to see difficulties for the likes of Michael Polasek and also for the incident between John Lauzon and Logan McKinzie. But to be fair, you've got to be in that lead pack to seize those opportunities when they happen. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough with that mistake on lap 23 at turn 4, just costing the chance of what otherwise was a perfect drive to victory. Dan McFarlane, well, he returns to the top of the Gamma class here with his result today. A brilliant drive for the Sim Racing Grid driver, 3rd overall as well. And holding off there, Gonzalo Fabi, who needs a big round of applause, because after that shunt between himself and Mika Hendricks, despite tying to the pit lane as well, he did manage to get the car back together and fought his way all the way up to 4th place. The Argentine driver absolutely flying there. He was ahead of Raymond Hugh, who finished 5th, runner-up in the Gamma class. And he'll be sad today, the Beaver and D's driver, that he can't share the podium with his teammate John Lauzon, but still some solid points there for the team in the Delta Championship. Well, in fact, the overall championship, I should say, team-wise. Good as well. I get my teams mixed up here. Cooper Akers finishing 6th in the end for Pennzoil Super Touring. A solid effort for him to round off the Gamma podium. Head of Tyler Long, who's back to winning ways in the Delta class once again for T0 Racing, sent ahead of his sister team driver in the Gammas of John Daniels. Then we saw Chris McDonald 9th in the end for Gator Racing. A strong drive from him, his best overall result of the season. 2nd place in the Deltas. And Major Monsavai completed your top 10 there, the privateer. And Zachary Bowman was 11th ahead of Jared Calnins, with James Corrin in for breakfast or dinner, having a slow and steady race to make up the progress. And well, he did a good job there to finish in what was 13th place, even if things didn't quite start out the way he wanted to. And he did slip outside the top 10, where he still got some good points on the board in the end. Adrian Fedorowski was 14th for the 212 Racing team, and what a drive from him to come all the way from 30th place, that 14th place finish, ahead of Mike D'Almeida, who was 15th for Yellow Flag Motorsport. And the Canadian driver putting on a very strong showing in the end, albeit didn't quite start off as the way he wanted to, but it's about how he recovered, which is what made it a strong drive. It was 16th place for Zachary Leopold, and if it was a different story, I think he would have been much closer to a podium in the Gamma class, but today he's had to settle for that 16th, knowing that things did not quite click the way he wanted to, but behind the Formula Llama driver to complete the top 20, it was Jason Lynn, JB DeJoux, Matt Shepka, and Lewis Gilbert. Behind the Crop Promotions driver, we did see finishing in 21st place, it was Damon Mitchell, and well, he was behind his teammate, but ahead of the Monster Energy Racing Machine on Mitchell Richmeyer that enjoyed a very good set of battles, and in the end, having started 41st, he made it all the way through to the tail end of the top 20, with Joseph Heath in 23rd, ahead of the Gasparilla Motorsport pair of Carl Flannery and Ronald Meffo. This Delta pack definitely saw plenty of fighting. Jonathan Bradford was no stranger to it, nor was Evan Clavio. And Clavio, to be fair, whatever went wrong in qualifying, he got it all back together when he did go racing. However, it was not around to be remembered necessarily for that qualifying session. It definitely cost him dear today. Meanwhile, we did see Corey Lobner just behind him in the end, being pipped to the post by the Sim Racing Grid Elantra, but he was able to stay ahead of the Audi pair of Austin Dunbar and third Al Ridgely, and he's perhaps the biggest surprise of all, Al Ridgely, having taken pole in the Delta class. I think the wet weather conditions in the car just were not compatible with him, and in the end, the CHG driver 30th after what was starting all the way up in none other than 6th place. 31st was Marcel Thomas ahead of Jeremy Barber, with Andy Kossick, Gareth McAllister, Jalen Kuo, Mark Darnell, Spencer Clark, and Sean Gerd completing your top 38 and your lead lap finishers. It was a lap down to debutant of Ryan Small in the end, and it was 2 laps down to John Lauzon, whose misfortune struck hard at the most critical point of the race. And we also did see, finishing outside the top 40, a 3 laps down there for Carl Trost. And sadly, we had several retirements in this race, including Logan McKinzie, Nick Bader, Angel Rescindes, Michael Polasek, who retired on the open lap with a technical issue with the car for Yellow Flag Motorsport. What a shock that was for number 1 driver. This is definitely a round that he will want to recover from quickly. Francois Schink, Angel Bonilla Soto, Tim Driscoll, and unfortunately a non-start there for Cameron DeMunk. But coming on to your individual class finishing positions, starting, of course, we've talked about the overalls. Now we must come to your alphas there, albeit they don't get any bonus points, but it's always good to talk about the alphas in their individual context. Mika Hendricks there, your winner of the Alpha Drivers Crop Promotions by 2.5 seconds versus Matthew Melior, and what a battle between the two of them. And the CHG driver got it all right on strategy. He picked the perfect time to pit, but unfortunately he picked the wrong time to have a mistake. Gonzalo Fabi completed the podium there of the alphas. Well done to him, only half a second behind. And then we did have retirements for the rest of Logan McKinzie, Michael Polasek, and Francois Schink. And then coming to the Gamma class, and here we see in our new class for this season, Dan McFarlane back to winning ways of Sim Racing Grid. Well done to him, 6.1 seconds ahead of Raymond Tiu, with the Beaver and D's driver more involved in the fight for the podium spots in the end versus Cooper Akers, who took third for Pensol Super Touring. But any one of those 3 could have won the race, no doubt about it. And at one point, it definitely looked as though Cooper Akers was going to have it until that incredible 2-for-1 special pass on Dan McFarlane at turn number 8 really sealed the deal. John Daniels finished 4th there for T0 Racing Summit ahead of Major Bonsavai, who round off your top 5, and it was Zachary Bowman in 6th place at Pennzoil Super Touring, knowing that today the result escaped him, but he showed the pace late on. James Cart, 7th there for breakfast for dinner, definitely did not seem to be comfortable in these wet conditions as much as qualifying would suggest, and it was Mike D'Almeida, Zachary Leopold, and Matt Shepka who completed that top 10. The Kirby Your Enthusiasm Autosport driver in the end, in the 490, was just ahead of Dane Mitchell, and it was 2 laps down for John Lauzon after his late shunt, and also that huge spin that we call only the tail end of in turn 1. Then lastly, coming to the Delta class, and here we can see, after 45 minutes of racing, Tyler Long reasserts himself at the very top again for T0 Racing Ascent, and the Gator Racing driver behind had to respect the ascent of Long, and that was Chris McDonald there in 2nd place. But what a drive from him as well, fighting hard every step of the way, and making sure that he was always going to be the runner-up. The one who you must feel a misfortune for is Jared Calnins, the privateer, who in the end, in the second half of the race, came on very quick in terms of pace. However, a bit of a contact between himself and Major Monsavai saw his charge blunted, and in the end he had to settle for 3rd, ahead of the 212 racer machine of Adrian Fedorowski, who did very well to come through the field to 4th place, having started in 14th. Jason Lynn was 5th there for Gator Racing. He had a solid run in the race and made his way up a few positions ahead of JB Dejoux, who had a much more straightforward race this time, albeit can you really say that in the wet weather conditions? Well, he'll feel that way after the changes of Charlotte. Croc Promotions, Lewis Gilbert finished 7th ahead of Mitchell Richmeyer, and the Monster Edgy Racing driver securing some good points in this round ahead of Joseph Heath and Carl Flannery, who completed the Delta top 10. The Gasparilla Motorsport drivers followed up by his teammate of Ronald Meffo there, who was fighting for the best of the rest position ahead of Jonathan Bradford. And it was Evan Clavio there who managed to salvage a 13th place finish for Sim Racing Grid ahead of Corey Lobner and Austin Dunbar. For Ed Hour originally in the end, he'll be wondering what exactly went wrong, where it was the change of conditions there that in the end saw him drop down for CHG ahead of Marcel Thomas. And it was Jeremy Barber, Andy Kossick and Gareth McAllister who completed the Delta top 20. Outside the top 20, there's more drivers to cover there, including Jalen Kuo, who finished in 21st. The Mid-Pack Mafia driver enjoying fighting that Mid-Pack, no doubt about it, ahead of Mark Darnell by 3 seconds. And then we did see Spencer Clark and Sean Gerd complete the lead lap finishers. It was a lap down to Ryan Small, ahead of Carl Trost, who was 3 laps down. And then it was retirement, sadly, for Nick Bader, Angel Rescindes, Angel Bonilla Soto, Tim Driscoll, and a non-start for Cameron DeMunk. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that completes our rundown of the finishing results for all of our classes, and well done to everyone today for taking part, and whether they made it to the finish or made it to the top step of the podium, they've all been absolute stars here at what has been a very wet Okayama International Racing course, or at least it has been at the very end of the proceedings, at the most important part, of course, in the race, less so in qualifying. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. So thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge, well, the great thing is we've got an ultimate place you can go to. There's only one place you can go to, and it is, of course, the official website at alphatouringchallenge.com. And if you need any information on the series, where it's the background, the history, the organisers, the current standings, all of it is there, and also a link to the beating heart of the community, that helps run and runs the grid for the series, known as its official Discord. The links are all available on the official website. I'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series partners, who do include, of course, Syncmesh, their web address sync-mesh.com, and born out of the pursuit of one man's search for better gear for sim racing. Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to a full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap on the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. So if you'd like to know more, do head to sync-mesh.com today. We also do have there Glass and Steel Photography and Design, who we also must say a big thank you to as well as our series partners, and the Alpha Touring Challenge's official photographer, Jason Lin, who you saw on the grid today, mixing it up with the very best in the Delta class. He is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But just don't take our word for it, because with 5-star reviews from his clientele citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder, if you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design that is going to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we turn our attentions now to next time. And well, if Okayama delivered excitement, I can tell you one thing, there's going to be even more excitement when we make our way back across the Pacific Ocean and back to the US of A. And they do say that Texas is known for two things, but unlike Full Metal Jacket, it's not quite that if you've ever watched the movie, because when we head there to the Circuit of the Americas, it'll be known for the following two things: plenty of understeer and plenty of touring car racing action. And if that does not make you absolutely excited, I don't know what will, ladies and gentlemen, because the racing will continue on what will be Monday, the 26th of January 2026, but come join us as if it were live in a post-round broadcast on Tuesday, the 27th of January, and see exactly who's going to be leading the way at the COTA. And what we've seen so far is that after 3 rounds, well, in the Alpha class, it's been a bit of a holdback for Michael Polasek after an early technical retirement today, and technical retirement seems to be blighting the very best. As for the Gammas, well, today it was none other than what was a roaring charge from the man who took victory at Road Atlanta and is back to the top of the proceedings of Dan McFarlane, but he's got plenty of company in the form of Raymond Tew and Cooper Akers and John Lauzon. And meanwhile in the Delta class, can anybody slow down Tyler Long's seemingly inevitability to be at the very front of the field, where he starts at the front or starts at the very back? We'll find out next time how that all continues, but until then, we've been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember, like our drivers, to stay on track. Good night.